Title: American Millionaire picked up a UK homeless girl on the road to be his wife but never expected. The rain poured relentlessly over the grey streets of London, turning the sidewalks into shallow rivers. People rushed past in their expensive coats, umbrellas bobbing like a sea of indifference. But on the corner of Oxford Street, a young woman sat alone beneath a flickering street lamp, hugging her knees to her chest. Her name was Amelia Grace, 24 years old, pale, shivering, and invisible. Once a university student with dreams of becoming a teacher, she had lost everything when her mother died, and debts consumed what little they had left. With no family and no home, the streets had become her bitter companion. That night, Amelia had almost given up hope. The cold had reached her bones, and her stomach twisted from hunger. She stared blankly at the puddles, wondering if this was how her story would end. Then, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a stop across from her. The tinted window rolled down slowly, and a man's voice, deep and calm, called out through the storm. "Are you all right, miss?" She looked up, blinking against the rain. The man inside wore a dark suit and a look of genuine concern. His accent was unmistakably American. She stammered. "I'm fine. Please, just go." But he didn't drive away. Instead, he got out, letting the rain soak through his coat. "You don't look fine," he said gently. "Come on, let me get you something warm to eat." She hesitated. "Why would you care?" He smiled faintly. "Because I've been where you are. Maybe not on this street, but I know what it's like to have no one." His name was Ethan Walker, a self-made millionaire from New York who had flown to London for a business expansion. He was in his mid-30s, tall, with piercing blue eyes that carried both strength and sadness. His wife had died in a car accident 3 years earlier, and since then, his wealth had become a cage more than a blessing. After a long pause, Amelia accepted his hand. They sat in a small cafe near the station, the warmth almost painful against her frozen skin. Ethan ordered for her, a full English breakfast even though it was nearly midnight, and watched quietly as she devoured the meal. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked softly. She shook her head, embarrassed. "Then you're coming with me," he said simply. Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "To my hotel," he clarified quickly. "Don't worry, I'm not that kind of man. You can have the spare suite. It's better than freezing out here." Amelia wanted to refuse, but exhaustion made the decision for her. That night, for the first time in months, she slept on a bed. She wept quietly into the pillow, not from fear, but from the strange kindness of a stranger who owed her nothing. Over the next week, Ethan saw her every day. He brought her clothes, helped her find a doctor, and listened to her story. What surprised him most wasn't her sadness, but her spirit, her humor, her intelligence, the quiet strength that refused to die. He started bringing her to business lunches, introducing her as a friend. People whispered, of course, why was the famous Ethan Walker spending time with a girl who clearly came from the streets? But Ethan didn't care. "Let them talk," he told her one evening as they walked through Hyde Park. "They've never known what it means to truly lose everything." Amelia smiled softly. "And what about you? What did you lose, Ethan?" He looked away. "My wife, my peace, maybe my purpose." They stopped under a blooming cherry tree, and for the first time she reached for his hand. "Maybe you're finding it again," she whispered. Something changed between them that night, something silent, powerful, and real. Weeks turned into months. Ethan offered to sponsor Amelia's education again, to help her get back on her feet. But Amelia refused at first. "I don't want to take advantage of you," she said. The world knew her name now. Amelia Walker, the British homeless girl who became the wife of an American millionaire and the face of hope for thousands. Her story had inspired millions, but fame came with its own storms. It had been 2 years since the wedding, and while love between Amelia and Ethan had grown deeper, the pressures around them had become heavier. The media still tried to twist their story. Business rivals plotted to use her past against Ethan, and Amelia constantly battled the feeling that she still didn't belong in his world. One evening, she stood by the tall glass window of their Manhattan penthouse, staring down at the glowing city. Ethan walked in, loosening his tie. "You're quiet tonight," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her. She leaned into him. "Do you ever regret it? Choosing me instead of someone easier?" He chuckled. "Easier doesn't mean better. You made me human again, Amelia." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes I still feel like that girl on the street corner, like one wrong step and I'll lose it all again." Ethan tilted her chin up. "You'll never lose me," he said. But as fate would have it, life had other plans. A week later, tragedy struck. Ethan's company, Walker Industries, faced a massive scandal. Someone had leaked confidential financial records to the media, records that made it look like the company had been funding illegal offshore accounts. The headlines were brutal. Walker Empire under fire, wife suspected of connections to charity fraud. Amelia froze when she saw it on the news. "What?" she whispered, disbelief flooding her. "That's not true. I never—" But Ethan's advisors were already calling. Investors were pulling out. The FBI opened an investigation, and somehow, the leaked documents pointed toward Amelia's charity foundation as a channel for the missing funds. She sat in their living room, trembling, as Ethan walked in, his expression unreadable. "Tell me it isn't true," he said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, I swear, I didn't do this. I'd never touch your money." "I believe you," he said immediately. "But someone wants us to break, Amelia, and they're doing it by using your past." He took her hands. "Do you remember the man who used to work for me in London, Richard Hale?" Amelia nodded slowly. He was Ethan's former partner, the one who had opposed Ethan's charity expansions, claiming they were a waste of profits. Ethan's jaw tightened. "He's behind this. He's been trying to take me down ever since I refused to sell him the company shares." "But how does he know so much about my foundation?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "Because he used someone close to you." Amelia's blood ran cold when she saw the photo Ethan placed on the table, a woman with red hair and a familiar smile. "Sophie," she gasped. Sophie had been Amelia's closest friend from the shelter in London, one of the few people who knew everything about her past. When Amelia gained fame, she'd hired Sophie as her personal assistant to help her adjust to her new life. "She was offered money to steal your charity's records," Ethan said grimly. "She gave them to Richard." Amelia felt her heart shatter. "But she was like a sister to me." "I know," Ethan whispered, pulling her close as she cried. "That's why it hurts." Over the next weeks, Amelia refused to hide behind lawyers. She faced the media, holding press conferences to clear her name. "I was homeless once," she said, her voice steady though her hands trembled. "And I'll say this clearly. I may have been poor, but I was never a thief. People can take my money, my title, even my reputation, but they'll never take my truth." The room fell silent. Her courage touched hearts around the world. Meanwhile, Ethan worked behind the scenes with investigators to expose the real culprits. Late one night, he burst into their apartment holding a flash drive. "I found it," he shouted. "Emails between Richard and So."